Joining us now from Washington is Ginger Chapman, a lawyer and political analyst. Thank you for joining us. Ginger, let's start off by asking, with the heart of the leak, if Macron truly believes that the US might actually betray Ukraine when it comes to territorial concessions, what does this actually tell us about the state of US-European trust and relations under Trump's foreign policy?
Well, first, thank you, Reham, for having me today, and greetings to your viewers. And what we are seeing is the breakdown of the final stages of the Ukraine war. We know that for the Ukrainians, their soldiers, their army is collapsing along the front lines, and Europe has a vested interest in keeping the war going. And they see that President Trump is trying to pull out of the war. Trump wants to extricate himself. And this is against a backdrop of Vladimir Putin is in India for a visit. And Trump is afraid that Putin and India are going to engage in economic arrangements and security guarantees that are going to neutralize President Trump's attempts to control global energy flows and President Trump's attempts to sanction countries in order to get them to do America's will. So, for example, we just got India to agree to not buy Russian oil, or India said they would cut back on purchases of Russian oil. And now Putin is in India having discussions with Modi. So, to get back to Europe, France, Macron, they want to keep the war going, and they do know that Zelensky is he's under threat, but he's under threat from his own nationalist radical faction, essentially the Azov battalion, the members that Putin refers to as Nazis. So they have actually threatened Zelensky's life if he negotiates any progress towards a peace agreement, especially if he gives up territorial concessions. And the territorial concessions are of the utmost importance to Ukraine because the territory they're losing to Russia is the territory that has their mines,
Yes,
the
natural
oil, the
resources.
farmland. Exactly. So Russia's gaining control of the natural resources. This could also leave Ukraine landlocked if Russia takes Odessa because of the Ukraine attacks on the Russian so-called shadow fleet, the Russian tankers delivering oil. We saw that Ukraine blew up 2 of their tankers. So Ukraine is getting more desperate. They are increasing their non-battlefield. France and Europe are getting more desperate. They are planning for this war to progress at least till 2030 for several reasons. One, their populations are angry. They want to get rid of these leaders. Their economies are becoming more fragile. We see that Germany is deindustrializing. England's economy is in terrible shape. So Europe is getting more desperate. And it appears they are issuing these warnings that Zelensky is in danger as a way to stir the pot and as a way to direct anger towards Trump and towards America.
So this is a tactic, in your opinion, basically, by European partners to prolong the war. And if so, what does this say about the leaks that have emerged? I mean, this comes in the heels of other leaks that emerged when it comes to Trump's envoy, Witkoff, speaking informally with the Kremlin. How does this leak play out, I suppose? Is this intentional by, for instance, maybe the Trump administration to somehow embarrass the Europeans, pressure them, or even push the agenda of, this is going to happen, a peace deal has to happen?
It does not appear that President Trump has that much control. We know he's been trying to keep the discussions with Ukraine and with Putin, with Steve Witkoff and Kushner. He's been trying to keep those under lock and key, no leaks, keep them secret, because Trump is afraid that the European Union and NATO will actually interfere with the peace process to keep the war going. So, and this is all coming against a backdrop of Trump and his Secretary of Defense, they like to say Secretary of War, which is very bad branding right now, but Trump and Pete Hegseth are under fire in the American media, and they're under fire from Congress because of the ongoing boat strikes off the coast of Venezuela. This is turning out to be a very big issue, especially for Hegseth. It appears that even our own Congress may be willing to entertain the thought that we have engaged in war crimes by striking and killing survivors of the boat strikes. So this is becoming a big issue for Trump, and Trump is losing control of his war efforts.
So he needs a win,
We're
basically.
Yes, exactly. We're overextended as far as we're overextended in Ukraine, we're overextended in Venezuela, and Trump does not appear to have a very good control of events right now. This is evidenced by his trying to keep a lock on any information. So this leak did not come from Trump, it came from the European Union.
So do you think that this leak is to the benefit of the Europeans?
Well, this leak may not benefit anyone. The goal of the leak is to create chaos, to create fear, and to create uncertainty. And in this chaos, then there can be more finger pointing. And of course, what the European Union would like is for Trump to offer security guarantees. The purpose of this leak is for Trump to reassure Zelensky and the EU that he has Zelensky's back. He will protect Zelensky, and they want America to provide robust security guarantees to Ukraine. However, the purpose of these security guarantees is only to draw the United States into a future conflict with Russia. So the United States does not want the security guarantees.
So, I mean, as you said there, the Europeans may possibly have leaked this information to create some sort of chaos, but also the European leaders who have traditionally been aligned with Washington have said, as you said, Zelensky's life is basically in danger and must be protected. How does this unusual language affect NATO leaders speaking when it comes to the United States? Do you think this is, I suppose, a way to pressure the United States maybe to, up their budget when it comes to NATO, given that Trump pulled out significantly from NATO?
Yes, and they are also playing on Trump's biggest fears of being blamed for the loss in Ukraine. Trump does not want this to be like another Afghanistan. Trump wants to be blameless. We see him saying, "This is not my war." However, any defeat will be Trump's defeat. And the European Union is busy trying to pin the blame on Trump while Trump is trying to escape. And the situation with Zelensky, he is under tremendous amounts of pressure. We know he has not held an election. This allows Putin to say his regime is illegitimate. They cannot sign an agreement with him because a future administration could invalidate it. But Zelensky is also in trouble. This is against the backdrop of the corruption charges, the $100 million that we know was embezzled, and those leaders have fled. And now there's also questions about another $48 billion, which was laundered through Estonia, which is now causing Americans to suspect Kaja Kallas and her desire to keep the war going. So this is getting very, very messy. There are vast sums of money involved that everyone wants to dip into. Zelensky's life is indeed in danger, but from his own countrymen, from his own Azov nationalists. And as the defeat of the Ukraine appears closer, Europe is trying to salvage what they can. So this leak is it's meant or intended to create more chaos. And then if anything does happen to Zelensky, Europe can place the blame on America. However, it does appear that Zelensky's days are numbered, not from the threat of assassination, but from illegitimacy. And Zelensky may actually need to flee to Greece or one of these other countries for any further progress in the peace plan. We do know that things are very volatile in Ukraine right now. Europe is getting more desperate as the United States wants to move on.
Well, I gather from what you're saying right now that basically territorial concessions are basically in the cards. It's just going to happen. It's a fact that's going to happen to end this war. If this does happen, do you think that NATO's credibility and strategic calculations may be shuttered, I suppose, given the concessions that are going to happen? And should Poland be fearful, or even Baltic states, of possible, Russian invasions there as well, and maybe taking land and annexing it like they've done in Ukraine?
Yes. Well, with respect to the territory, even though the European Union says Russia has only taken 0.2%, or they're advancing slowly, what we see is at this point, Russia has about 19% of Ukraine. They have the vital southern areas. If it appears that Russia is going to take Odessa, and
they've
this
already
is
annexed
what Ukraine
Crimea
is desperate.
years ago.
Correct. They already have Crimea, and now because of Ukrainian actions on the on the Black Sea Fleet, Russia, it does appear that they are going to advance through Nikolai. They're going to take Odessa. This is going to leave Ukraine in a severely disadvantaged rump state condition with no access to any ports, to the sea. This will cut off their trade. This brings up Poland. Europe wants to say that they're going to let Ukraine into the EU. Poland is opposed to this because if Ukraine starts shipping their goods, their produce into the EU, they're going to undercut Poland, and also, but there's the long-standing animosity that Poland has towards Russia. The Baltic states, they are somewhat negligible. They're in a very strategic location, but politically, they do not have a great deal of power. So the Baltic states are somewhat of an afterthought. It's really whether Poland wants to be the front line of NATO. Will Poland have their air bases? Will they have the NATO facilities along the Poland-Ukraine border to protect Ukraine? We do know that Poland has lost a number of soldiers in the war.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, the Poland could probably be the front line for NATO. And also Putin had stated, according to The Guardian, that he's ready to go to war with Europe. How seriously should the Europeans take this threat, and should Poland be fearful of this?
This is a very serious threat. If anyone saw that clip, the press release where Putin said that, first of all, he believes that Europe is going to be the one to strike first. But he did say that if Europe attacks Russia, Putin will not be as careful with Europe as he is with the Ukrainians. The Russians view the Ukrainians as their Slavic brothers. They view them as Orthodox Christians. And Putin has stated he's been very careful to minimize civilian casualties. And Putin did say he will not be as precise with Europe. And he made this motion like a surgeon with a scalpel. This does not bode well for Europe. If Europe does attack Russia, or if there is a misunderstanding and this starts hostilities, then Putin, it appears that Putin will strike Europe very vigorously and very decisively to bring a complete stop to any hostilities before another war gets underway. So Europe is treading on very precarious ground with their, I don't want to say threats. These are not as far as threats. They may be veiled suggestions, veiled threats. They may just be an indication of what Europe is thinking, but this is very dangerous ground because Putin will not play with Europe. He will strike them decisively to preempt any war before it starts. This brings us to NATO. NATO is very large. It has a lot of internal conflicts because there's too many countries in NATO that all have very different needs, very different security needs. They are varying distances from Russia. So we see Poland Finland, they're a little more alarmed. However, countries such as Spain, Italy, they do not believe there's as much a threat to them. So any attack against Russia also has the added danger of fracturing NATO. So NATO's viability itself could be at risk if they do attack Russia, and Putin has indicated he will not play around with Europe. So this is very serious. And once again,
Yes.
we do know that NATO has sent troops into Ukraine. We know at this point at least 10,000 Polish soldiers have died in Ukraine, fighting for Ukraine. We know there's an unknown number of British and French soldiers that have died in Ukraine. This is also why England and France are desperate to send soldiers to Ukraine, because they want to hide their unofficial casualties that have already occurred there by official numbers, which they can do if they send soldiers in. So Europe really wants to penetrate Ukraine.
All right. The point there is clear. This is serious business for Europe, but unfortunately we're out of time for this segment. Thank you so much, Ginger Chapman, for your insights.